interoperability of applications on a worldwide basis. We've seen the stack. Daryan, when I look at that stack, I start to think about, should we be going down the standards route in terms of interoperability between the different layers, best of breed routes, Intel at the base with the scale. Are you involved in any market initiatives, to actually drive some of that, those common patterns?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting. Intel being a chip company, it's like, what the heck are they up here for? And the reality is, it's about scale and transparency. Scale in the sense that it takes gear to run this, and you want as much flexibility and choice as you can possibly get. So we do things like working with Facebook on the Facebook Open Compute project, which a lot of you have probably heard. That, quite frankly, your first question of the day was about egos, acronyms. And
we got enough egos. That's fine.
Ego is a good acronym for it. Eyes glazed over, right? So if we talk about cloud, it's really, on one hand, it's about achieving the scale and doing that through economics and volume economics. On the other side, though, it's about the usage model, which is why Intel did the Open Data Center Alliance, which a number of banks are steering committee members, including JPMorgan Chase, UBS, and a few others. That's over 100 companies representing about $25 billion in spend, and there's not a single vendor on that standards body. If that can become a PCI-like SIG of the usage model, it's going to enable a lot more interoperability, a lot more flexibility.
So Duncan, let me just actually pick on that. Not a single vendor on that committee. I think that's a mistake, right? Insofar as a lot of the innovation is coming from.
It's not true. Sorry, Carl Dehghanpishel, I'm the global CTO for Capgemini. We're a member of the ODCA.
Great.
Sorry, I should be more specific. Not a single hardware vendor on that. And Capgemini, interestingly, is an interesting element because they're on there both as a consultant to the architecture, more than also as a consumer, not necessarily as selling into the environment.
So Duncan, to add a little bit of perspective around some of the interaction, the vendor versus end user debate.
Sure. Well, I mean, what we have seen is the rise of, if you like, end user driven standards. So the Open Data Center Alliance is something that we were very keen to get involved with, and we have finally been let in a year into the project. But I think people generally have become leery of vendor-led initiatives as being self-serving by and large. So I can sort of understand it, having been on the other side of the fence. Where I think oftentimes what you're more interested in is how can we as an industry, if we're in finance, for example, get better leverage out of assets. What we're more interested in things like creating utilities than we are in being told what to do by a vendor.
Okay, so in that fact, there is some balance and inputs coming in from different places now.
Yeah, and even, beware agendas. I mean, they're everywhere.
Jason, table one, really done the homework, come up with the original question. What's stopping FSIs adopting cloud, if indeed they're not adopting it? Is it the regulator or the vendors?
I don't think, first of all, it depends how you quantify cloud, but I think a lot of the FS companies are experimenting with cloud or have actually got their own internal private cloud set up. I think it clearly is a concern from a regulatory point of view, and also still perhaps a security point of view, which are perhaps giving them caution to look at hosting in an externally hosted cloud. So I think the FS groups or companies are looking, and doing stuff internally, but perhaps are experimenting and investigating the external side.
Okay.
We see it, most of the banks have focused on private clouds, and so the regulators are not involved in that, obviously, and it's basically to improve their internal infrastructure. If we're looking at 2 or 3 years ago, it was mainly experiments, but we have seen recently a number of them really going full steam towards production or already in production, especially in the VDI space, the virtualization of desktops, and that is really becoming reality there.
Okay.
And it's maybe moving backwards. If you think about this pendulum that 20 years ago, it was all based on mainframe and just terminals. Basically, it's really going in that direction, only implemented on different technologies.
Good. Okay. John, table 3, they came up with, will cloud break down the traditional silos that we've seen? From a grid providing point of view, your grids have been going across lines of business, no doubt. Is that something which is expanding more going forward?
I'm going to answer that simply, hell yeah. From an IT point of view, why would you have a silo of infrastructure and resource? Resource is resource, right? You don't care where you get your power from, whether it's hydro, nuclear, or it's power.
Right.
It won't break down lines of business from the point of view of a business, business structure. But from an IT structure, why would you have silos of IT resource? You'll have silos of applications, you'll have production applications that are certified for your business silo, but why would you have a silo of resource? Resource is resource.
Right. So, similar thing, Jason, and pick up on the desktop piece.
Well, I was going to pick up on the point you made there, and absolutely, hell yeah. But also, if you look at some of the traditional siloed functions you've had, I think it also creates or triggers the creation of new functions. So if you think about it, if you introduce some form of cloud within an IT organization, effectively what that means is you're giving your consumers the ability to consume rapidly. And one of the things a lot of companies don't necessarily have is capacity management functions. So you can eat it rapidly, you may well run out rapidly, and that's not an area you want to get to. So I think as well as coalescing those silos down, it's also identifying the need for creation of new functions as well.
Okay. So Philip, I'm going to come back to the business end. The regulations out there, changing the way the market landscape operates, SEPA, BAL, etc. Are they causing you to have to respond in different ways? And is all the services which we've heard about tonight a route to market enables you to respond?
Yeah, I think, thank God they are, because in actual fact it's a huge business driver for, I think, all of us that are part of this movement. To respond to all the regulatory drives that are in the market today at the same time as coming off the back of a financial crisis which has wrecked IT budgets is definitely driving a lot more confidence in partnering and outsourcing and looking at different new business models. Thankfully they both hit at exactly the same time. It used to be a case where you'd be selling to a head of IT or ops their own obituary if you were trying to portray software as a service or outsourcing.
Right.
Now it's from the top, very much so. And I think regulation, and as I say, the financial crisis has been a fantastic boon for our business. I'm sure it must be the same for the providers of the momentum behind cloud itself. For us as the creators of apps or outsourcing processes, it's been fabulous.
Right. Okay. So picking back Duncan, some questions here. I think it's questions in table 7. Some of the, what are some of the models around that might be in public cloud utilization which can apply to the enterprise? And we talked about private. Are there any pay-as-you-go kind of models which will evolve, do you think, based on what you've seen back from our early days as dollar per CPU per hour?
I was there when.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Almost when we were told $1 per CPU hour was, the new way of consuming resource.
Right.
I mean, I guess. I think provided we can, and this is we meaning the guys providing the sort of the cloud stack, provided that we can give people control over their environment, and control I think is one of the key concerns here. It's great having something that's productive, highly elastic, supercalifragilistic, but unless you can still maintain control over that environment and where and when things run and what they run on, I think you do have a genuine problem. So and this is an area, by the way, that's a hot area for companies in the platform as a service space, is you want to be able to deploy an application, but you also want to have information coming at you from the infrastructure, telling you where that infrastructure is actually located. So I don't mean street address, but I mean what jurisdiction is that being provided in. And actually, it's interesting because Terramark, now part of Verizon Business, obviously, very open to doing this. Amazon initially quite leery about doing this, but there's a project called JClouds, which is run by a young guy called Adrian Cole, and he's managed to really break through this and get the infrastructure as a service guys that want enterprise class business and workloads to take this notion very, very seriously. So I think if we can actually provide control, provide information that gives you the ability to set policies and set constraints, then I think cloud has a tremendous future.